BTS Jungkook's shocking confession. ADHD and privacy threats. What really happened? The silence was broken in the most unexpected way. When Jungkook of BTS, one of the most celebrated artists of his generation, revealed something that no one had ever anticipated. In a world where perfection is often expected from idols, Jungkook stood before millions and admitted that he has been living with ADHD. The admission was raw, unsettling, and brutally honest. Yet the confession did not stand alone. It was followed by something far darker. The revelation that his private space had been invaded not once, but multiple times, by obsessive individuals who crossed every imaginable boundary. How could these two deeply personal revelations collide in a single moment? And what do they truly reveal about the fragile line between fame and humanity? Jungkook's words immediately struck the world with shockwaves. Fans were left speechless, critics were forced to rethink their assumptions, and observers across the globe began to ask, why now? Why would Jungkook choose to expose such a vulnerable part of himself at a time when his personal safety was already under threat? The questions poured in like an unstoppable tide, each one heavier than the last. And perhaps the real mystery is not just the diagnosis itself, but the courage it took for Jungkook to face it publicly, while simultaneously dealing with the suffocating presence of individuals who believe they have a right to violate his privacy. ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is not merely a medical term. For many, it is a lifelong battle with focus, impulsivity, and inner restlessness. For someone like Jungkook, whose every move is dissected under the global spotlight, admitting such a condition is almost revolutionary. It strips away the polished image of an untouchable superstar and replaces it with a brutally human reality. What does it mean for a figure of his stature to open up about something so personal? Is it a call for greater awareness, or is it a cry for help that the public has yet to fully comprehend? Yet as Jungkook was navigating this deeply personal revelation, another storm was brewing. Reports emerged that satiating fans, those who go far beyond the limits of ordinary fandom, had attempted to break into his home, not once but multiple times. This was not a harmless prank or an innocent accident. It was a direct violation of his safety, his sanctuary, and his humanity. How terrifying must it feel to admit your inner struggles to the world, while simultaneously realizing that your physical space is no longer secure? The two realities collided, painting a portrait of a man surrounded by noise, pressure, and constant invasion. The irony is chilling. Jungkook's confession about ADHD was meant to humanize him, to connect him to millions who face the same struggle every day. Yet instead of being met with only empathy, it coincided with a stark reminder of how dehumanizing fame can be. How can a person heal, reflect, or simply breathe when the very walls of their own home are under siege? It forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. The adoration of millions can turn into obsession for a few, and that obsession can become a weapon. Observers have pointed out that Jungkook's response to these invasions was not one of silence. He reacted firmly, almost defiantly, warning those who dared to trespass that such behavior would not be tolerated. It was not merely a defensive move. It was a declaration of boundaries, a statement that even the most beloved idol has limits that must not be crossed. But does the world truly listen? Or will these warnings fade into the endless stream of online noise, only to be ignored by those determined to blur the line between admiration and intrusion? The confession and the threats together create a narrative almost too heavy to process. On one side, Jungkook is opening the door to understanding ADHD, a step that could inspire countless fans struggling with similar conditions. On the other, his very act of vulnerability is overshadowed by the fear that he cannot exist safely in the privacy of his own home. The contrast is both heartbreaking and alarming. It begs the question, is the price of honesty in the public eye always accompanied by the loss of personal freedom? What really happened here is not just a story about ADHD, nor solely about satiating culture. It is about the unbearable tension between humanity and stardom. Jungkook, for all his fame, is not immune to pain, fear, or struggle. His confession is a reminder that perfection is an illusion. His warning against privacy invasion is a desperate plea for respect. And perhaps most of all, his story is a mirror reflecting the uncomfortable question back to us, the audience. When we demand everything from our idols, are we prepared to face the truth of what they endure in return? In the end, Jungkook's revelation leaves us suspended between admiration and unease. His courage in admitting ADHD is nothing short of groundbreaking. Yet the simultaneous threats to his safety turn the story into something almost tragic. It is dramatic, yes, but it is also brutally real. And so the question remains: can the world learn to love its idols as human beings, or will it continue to consume them until nothing remains but the shadow of their confessions and the echo of their warnings? The revelation surrounding Jungkook, the youngest member of BTS, has sent a tremor across global media platforms. His admission of living with ADHD, coupled with the disturbing reports of privacy violations by obsessive fans, has left both supporters and critics reeling with questions. But in this overwhelming storm of information, one crucial matter must be addressed. How much of what we consume as news reflects verifiable truth, and how much is constructed narrative designed to provoke emotions, amplify curiosity, and exploit our attention? Can the audience truly distinguish between fact and fabrication, or are we surrendering ourselves to the spectacle of sensationalism without resistance? The confession itself appeared sincere. Jungkook's voice trembled, his expression seemed unguarded, and the message carried the weight of vulnerability rarely displayed by global superstars. Yet, in an age where authenticity and performance intertwine seamlessly, how can one be absolutely certain of the reality behind the words? Was this a genuine outpouring of truth, or could it have been carefully staged? A strategic move to maintain relevance and dominance in a market where constant visibility dictates survival? And more importantly, should we accept such revelations at face value, or interrogate them as we would any unverified claim? The simultaneous emergence of reports about saying invasions only deepens this uncertainty. The idea that an idol's private home was infiltrated not once but multiple times is chilling. Yet does the narrative fit too perfectly with the confession? Almost as if it were designed to reinforce the theme of vulnerability and victimhood? Could the overlap between the ADHD admission and the threat to privacy be coincidental? Or is it possible that the two stories were strategically aligned to create maximum emotional impact? These are not accusations, but essential questions. To ignore them would be to accept passivity in the face of media machinery that thrives on manipulation. What we do know is that information regarding these events did not originate from formal press briefings, judicial reports, or verified institutional announcements. Instead, much of it surfaced on TikTok, circulated on Twitter, amplified through YouTube commentary, and spread further by secondary online outlets. This fragmented and decentralized flow of information raises immediate concerns about authenticity. How can an audience distinguish genuine testimony from exaggeration, misinterpretation, or outright fabrication when the original source itself is nebulous? Do we, as consumers, allow our desire for shock and drama to override our demand for credible verification? Consider the psychological impact. When Jungkook spoke about ADHD, countless fans related instantly. Some saw themselves reflected in his words,